Well, would you look at that? It's Thursday, September 25th, and the 2 days that were predicted to be the rapture have now officially come and gone, and yet everyone is still here. Now, technically, I'm making this video on Tuesday, but I'm pretty confident. Who's the real prophet now? But the reason I made this video early is because I'm going to be on a work trip Wednesday through Friday, which means I'll probably be slow responding to comments today, but I hope you'll still watch because this video I think is really important. It's kind of the conclusion of our Rapture week, and I want to do a post-mortem here. I have two main goals for this video. One, I want to talk about the excuses, the coping that will be made and why they fail. And then more importantly, I want to talk about the lessons that can be learned. I have just 4 for us today. These lessons I think can apply to everybody because all of us can be very wrong about things. And even the believers that did not predict that the rapture would happen here can learn from this event. And I hope that they will. But before we get to these two main points, I want to talk about the deal, the bet, the wager that I laid out at the beginning of Sunday's video. For those of you that haven't seen it, I'll cover it very quickly. It was just for any Christian, especially if they had a following online or were in leadership at church, that was in any way saying they heard from God that the rapture was indeed happening on the 23rd or 24th. Many of them tried to hedge their bets, but it didn't change their language. My 5 rapture confirmations from God. He showed me 3 dreams and 2 visions. Oh, the Lord revealed to my heart this. Oh, he told my 5-year-old that. That's a whole lot of stuff just to backtrack and be like, well, I mean, it could have been soon. If you're saying you have a confirmation from the Lord for these dates, the least you can do is actually own up to it. And so that's what I had said. I said, hey, listen, if you did that, you need to come the 25th, admit that you're wrong. You need to call yourself what you are, a false prophet by definition from your own Bible. You need to remove yourself from church leadership. How could you possibly be trusted? And you need to refund any money that you made, whether it was donations or super chats or books or courses, off of this event. Now, I can't force anyone to take that deal, and I never really expected that anyone would. It was more about making the point. So as fun as it would be to pour through all the channels of everyone that made these confirmations and call them out or revel in the fact that they were wrong, that's not why I put the challenge out there. I simply wanted to call it all out ahead of time, to highlight the pattern, to plant a seed of awareness, because this happens every time. The predictions fail, the excuses come, and people get hurt. That's what Sunday's video was about, the harm of this kind of thing. So what matters a lot more than dunking on failed prophets is what we can learn from it and how we can help those who are confused or disappointed or scared. There were many rapture confirmation videos that I watched, and I believe with all my heart that they were sincere. Were there a few grifters? No doubt about it. But a lot of people really, truly believed. And now this didn't happen. That's going to wreck them to some degree. And that's not something I wish for anybody. So with that said, and we're about to get into it, my encouragement to the non-Christians watching is not to go rub anyone's face in this, at least not on my account. I still think if they were in leadership or grifting, there should be the consequences I mentioned in the wager, but otherwise, can we just have some compassion? And sometimes compassion does look like calling it out. And that's why I do want to cover this first grouping of the excuses, the coping that will happen. Now it's Tuesday. I haven't even seen this yet. Everyone still believes they're going, but I've been around long enough to see this many, many times. And there are 4 main excuses that I hear. The first one is that it is a spiritual rapture, not a physical one. This one is a bold-faced lie, as the vast majority of people that are claiming what the rapture is and when it will happen expected to physically leave. That's abundantly clear. That's also what is clear in whatever different iterations of scripture people pull the idea from. And some people confuse the rapture with the second coming. Some people see a true biblical basis for it. Some people say it's not even in there. But insofar we can get to anything of what some people in the Bible might have been expecting, and thus what Christians today are still expecting, it's physical, not spiritual. Spiritual is always the cope, always the cop-out. In Sunday's video, I mentioned Jesus's failed prophecy, the one that says, I tell you the truth, there are those among us today, this generation, that will not taste death before the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now, there's 2 ways to excuse it, but again, one of them is, no, Jesus did come back, but it was spiritual. After his ascension, and he gives us the Holy Spirit, that's him. His kingdom is now on earth, but it is a spiritual one. He didn't have to rebuild the physical temple. He is the temple. They are moving the goalpost from the physical expectation to a spiritual cop-out. The second one is some kind of a miscalculation. Oh, the calendar was off. You know what? We didn't account for the fact that the Jewish holidays actually work like this, or actually the Gregorian calendar had a mishap and we're going to be 51 days off. So now it's going to be whatever date or whatever year, whatever they're more comfortable with, whatever they can fashion out of all of of the games you can play with numbers. So if they're wrong here, they will just come up with some new pattern, some new miscalculation they can attribute to, well, we're just human, we're failed. Well, that was never what the claim was based off of. The claim was clearly based off of what God was confirming in your heart, how he spoke to you. But it won't stop them. They will absolutely make this second excuse. The third one is that God delayed it out of mercy. Again, we see this excuse in 2 Peter. I covered that on Sunday, that God is not slow in the way that most of us think of slowness, that by his grace he has given more time. But this excuse fails for a couple reasons. Why would an omniscient God have confirmed it to so many people, knowing he was going to change it? Also, more time does not equal more believers. Every year there are less Christians. So by that logic, if the rapture gets delayed 10 years, there will be however many more, maybe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people that would have been raptured now that instead will be here for the tribulation and then most likely burning in hell. It's really probably the silliest excuse of them all. And then the last one is that this was just a test of faith. Are you willing to declare out loud, even to your own detriment and embarrassment, your connection with God, your ability to hear from him? Can you go through this trial of being wrong about this and still believe, still profess faith towards this creator? How utterly messed up is that? It is psychological abuse. But I guarantee it. Go watch for yourself starting today. Again, I'm batting 1,000 for my prophecies. You'll see all 4 of these. So I thought it was worth calling that out because there's 2 categories that they'll be used. They'll be used by those in power, those who were grifting, those who don't want to lose their leadership positions, those that preached it from the pulpit. That's how they will spin it to their followers, their congregants. It will be for self-preservation. And then the second kind is for the believer who, again, just genuinely believed that they heard from God about this thing. And instead of admitting one of 2 things, hey, maybe this God's not real, or if you can't go that far, maybe I'm not actually capable of hearing from God when I think I am. Maybe I'm wrong. Both are an incredibly hard pill to swallow. You know what's a lot easier? Some apologist laying out some excuse for you, like the 4 I just mentioned, and you clinging on to the one you like the most. It's a very strange and sad dissonance that will wash over these people, and a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, it will be as if this never happened at all. Even more upsetting, whenever the next rapture fever comes about, they'll still catch it. You would think it would work like a inoculation, protecting them from ever catching this again. And for some, I hope that's the case, but for many, we've seen them just be wrong time and time again. But enough with the coping and excuses. I want to move on to the second part of this video here, which are the lessons that can be learned. And again, I've limited it to 4. I know the last 2 videos were long. I wanted this to be a bit more accessible. The first thing that this made me do was look at motivations. And I've mentioned this many times. There's 2 motivations within Christianity. You have the carrot and you have the stick. You have heaven and you have hell. The rapture can play off of both. It's a fear tactic and a hope tactic. And so the first lesson here is that faith shouldn't rely on either of those. And yes, these motivations are natural. They are part of being human. Parents use them, bosses use them, teachers use them. I mean, we are psychologically wired to move towards pleasure or away from pain. But when it comes to the God of the universe, when it comes to what should be the truest thing of all true things, the most powerful thing of all powerful things, the greatest thing of all great things, shouldn't it just be? If this God is as essential to reality as his believers claim him to be, then it shouldn't matter if he tosses them in hell or brings them to heaven or annihilates them. And yet, so many Christians converted in the first place or stayed after being indoctrinated into this faith because of the fear. I think one of the sickest parts of Christianity, of religion in general, is how it preys on people, is how it converts people, is how it fences people in and prevents them from leaving using these tactics. You shouldn't have to use tactics if any of this were real. That's my point. Lesson number 2 here is that responsibility cannot be delayed. Since Jesus' time, we have had people that thought the end is near, the end is near, the end is near, and it changes what people do with their life. It changes the message that comes from people in leadership like Jesus and Paul, who are giving the advice to not bury your father, come and follow me. Hate your family, come and follow me. Sell your cloak and buy a sword. Here we go. Don't get married, don't start a business, as Paul would say, because the time is so near. There's work to be done. Luckily, many Christians today don't live their lives like this, but that doesn't stop them from still believing in some extent that this world doesn't matter as much as the next one, or that the end is probably near. All of the skeptical Christians who didn't buy into the rapture prediction of this time, so many of them, so many still said, well, we can't know the date or the hour, and this hasn't been confirmed to me, and I don't think God works that way, but oh man, the end is still near. Oh man, there's no doubt these are the end times. Oh man, there's no doubt that the prophecies are being fulfilled. And all of that, no matter which side of the fence you're on, is really a form of escapism. And one of the great things about failed rapture predictions is that they can work as a reminder. We still have to care about the earth. We still have to fight injustice. We still have to love our neighbor and 1,000 other things that can so often just get put on the back burner when your entire worldview is wrapped up in apocalyptic thinking. And you might not think that you're Mr. Revelation, but Jesus, Paul, all the verses that you love, they are from apocalyptic preachers, the religion at large. And I hesitate to call it this because to the Christian, I know it can't be received well, but I think it's important to hear it, is a death cult. Really, we'll expand on that in a further video. But when you have Paul, who essentially creates Christianity as we have it today, saying something like, to me, to live is Christ and to die is gain, that's the proper worldview of what it means to follow Jesus. This life is just for you to do his bidding, and then you get to die, and that's when life really begins. That's when you gain. It's short-sighted. It's selfish at the root of it. It's not selfish. Look, they're sacrificing their entire life. No, they're sacrificing, bam, that's it, a snap, a blink of an eye compared to eternity of perfection in paradise that they want. That's not a hard trade-off at all. That's not anything to be impressed by, but it is something that can cause real harm, not only for those individuals, but of course then how they live out their life, how they act out their life, and the effects that it has on others, their communities, the environment, the world at large. So this escapism is no excuse for responsibility. The third one we'll do quick because it's tied to it, and the fourth one's the most important one, but the third one here is that the world is still beautiful. I fear for so many Christians who really believed that the end was here, who now are just left in their mind amongst the evil, sinful world, the one they were desperate to escape. For many, it would have been a leg up. Many people are in suffering, and so they clutched on to this hope as an ending to their pain, finally, as a reward to their long suffering at last. But when it doesn't happen, where are they left? And I'm not saying that for everyone the world is beautiful. For many people it's not, and that's unfortunate. But putting your hope in a God that isn't there and in a rapture that is never coming will not solve it. So like point 2, it's time to let the escapism go. It's time to be responsible for what we can be responsible for. Maybe to change our perspective, to have a mind shift about how we view the world. Because one of the horrible things about Christianity is that it really does make you see everything around you as evil, as wicked, as rotten, as fallen, as offensive to God. Verse after verse after verse remind the believer of this. And one can begin to hate the world. And then, of course, like Paul, long for death or rapture to escape it. And there's a lot of shit going on. And again, a lot of people are really suffering. And I don't want to sound stupid here, but there are still sunsets and friendship and love, music, discovery, and art, and really a million more things that can give your life meaning and purpose and make this time the only time we really get of conscious awareness in this universe worthwhile. I have found that, and I hope it for you. I'm going to take a 1-minute pause here to plug my second channel that I hope comes out a week from today. I've narrowed it down to 2 different channel names, either Stealing Fire or Sharing Fire, and I'd love your guys' advice, but both stem from the Promethean myth. And I finished writing the channel description last night. I want to read it to you, and it ties into this point, so bear with me. Assuming it would be Stealing Fire, it would be something like this. In the ancient myth, Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. That fire was more than survival. It was knowledge, creativity, and the power to discover and to become. Now we steal not from Olympus, but from the abyss of forgetting, where ideas are lost to time and where ignorance and apathy threaten to dim what we once held sacred. Stealing Fire continues that tradition by keeping the torch lit and sharing the warmth carried through the ages. The flames of philosophy, history, art, and science illuminate what it means to be human. So come steal some fire and keep the light alive. That's going to be the goal of the second channel, what it means to be human, the things that we have learned along the way that get lost quite often by religion. And so I hope for any of you that are feeling lost, that are trying to find your own purpose, whether you're still a believer or you are in the middle of deconstructing or you have deconverted. It's on that second channel where I'm going to be covering more philosophy and psychology and talking about art and music and beauty, as well as science and history. What can we learn? What have we learned? What is that knowledge, that flame that's worth holding on to? It won't really be religiously focused like this channel is. So if it's not your cup of tea, no problem. But I hope all of you will come back Thursday. I'll make an announcement here on this channel with a link to the new channel. And feel free to also let me know in the comments down below if you like stealing fire, which I think sounds cooler. It also feels like action, but there's a bit of a negative connotation, whereas you have sharing fire, which fits in nicely with the idea of what we're doing. I really cannot decide, and I need to hurry up and do so. But getting back to that third point, the idea is that we can still celebrate life. We can still celebrate that it's continuing and that we don't need an apocalypse to find meaning. So let's move on to our very last point here, and then we'll close out. The fourth lesson, this one is really toward the believer, because for that person who is deconstructed or deconverted, we already learned this hard lesson, that even sincere, well-meaning, Bible-reading, God-believing Christians can be wrong when they think they've heard from the voice of God. That's what Tuesday's video was all about. Sincerity does not guarantee truth. Your indoctrination into this religion does not make it real. If you are the kind of Christian who looked at the people making the rapture predictions and thought they were crazy, thought that because of what Jesus said, there's no way that they could have been hearing from God, I want to ask you, how do you account for it then? How are they so different than you? Well, Brandon, they don't know their Bible clearly. I've made hundreds of reaction videos to all kinds of Christians through all kinds of denominations who had all different kinds of beliefs about the Bible. If you just want to play the no true Scotsman fallacy game, you can do that all day. But I'm sure you yourself have thought something about the Bible at one point that later you realized wasn't necessarily true. Does that mean that God shouldn't have been communicating with you? For these thousands and thousands and thousands of true, believing, sincere Christians who with every fiber of their being thought they were actually having a real experience with God, really hearing his voice, really getting revelation. How can you dismiss that when you yourself believe that you too hear from God, have had revelation, have a personal relationship with him? I think there's only one of two ways you can go. You would either have to admit that no one is hearing from God because God doesn't exist, which again, I think is a bite further than most people can take it. Or you'd have to say, maybe you are wrong too. But that opens a whole new door. If real, sincere, believing Christians can think they're hearing from God and get it wrong, the implications of that, I get, are terrifying, but they're also unavoidable. Was Paul wrong? His experience on the road to Damascus is not unlike what thousands of Christians reported over the last few days about their rapture confirmation. It was a vision. Do you know how many visions have been had by Christians all around the world? Again, like I said, the person who's already deconstructed and deconverted, we know what this is. We understand the psychology. We know how faulty the mechanism is. But you as a believer, can you come to terms with this? What would it change for you? Is it maybe the first step in waking up? Now, some Christians are having no problem with this and they're easily dismissing it. You know, we're all human, we're faulty. There's the devil, there's sin, there's all kinds of stuff that gets in the way, that makes us potentially wrong. None of us are perfect, sure, but if there was a time to be perfect, wouldn't it be when the Spirit of God is working on your heart, when the voice of God is directly speaking to you, when he gives you a vision or a dream? If you can just chalk all that up to, sometimes we're wrong, then again, you would need to admit, maybe the whole Bible's wrong. Maybe the whole religion's wrong. Maybe your denomination is wrong. Maybe your particular beliefs are wrong. Even the important ones, the ones that differentiate if you go to heaven or not, if you're lukewarm and are spit from the mouth of Jesus himself, if he will deny you at that last moment and say, I never knew you. Now, none of that is to cause fear. I don't believe that this God is here. I don't believe that anyone is going to hell. But I think, again, we finally, and we don't get this often within Christianity, and even though there's cope and goalpost moving, we had a claim that was 100% falsifiable. And if it is indeed Thursday, September 25th, then for thousands upon thousands of Christians, we finally have an event that proves they were wrong when they thought they heard from God. And again, if that can be the case for some, it can be the case for all. And if it can be the case for all, this whole thing might not be real. Are you willing to contend with that? Because I do think that's the greatest lesson that can be had here. So that's it. I don't know if I'm going to get it done in time since I'm traveling, but I would hope that my Sunday video is going to be my conversation with Gavin. So potentially look forward to that. And until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support, my Iconoclast, Ann, Boris, Grant, GVI, Jimmy, Joe, yes, the Kitboga, Matthew, Perry, and Shawn, my Humanist heroes, Craig, James, Jarrod, Kristi, and Matthew, my atheist advocates, Equitar, Caleb, Dakota, Dan, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Jugs, Julie, Malcolm, Paul, Sparky, and Thomas, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. And to everyone else who gives in any capacity, thank you so much.